Hola. For the past 80 years, if you want to understand what people are doing, if you want to know what they're thinking, what they're going to do, why they do the things they do, you have one approach. You ask them. So people conduct a survey, Gallup or Pew or some other organization will go around and ask people questions about their lives. And there's a problem with this approach, which is that people lie to surveys. So a lot of times Gallup asks you a question on the phone and you don't tell the truth. You tell what you think will impress the person asking the survey. So I'll give you an example. In American elections, they ask people, did you vote in the previous election? In a survey. They can compare that number, what people say, to what they actually did. And I find this amazing. More than half of people who didn't vote tell the survey, yeah, I voted. I'm a good citizen. I exercise my civic duty. People don't want to admit to surveys that they didn't vote in the election, so they lie. My favorite example of lying in surveys, more of an R-rated example. Surveys, they ask men and women about their sexual behavior. They ask how frequently they have sex, whether it's heterosexual sex, and whether they use a condom. So you ask women this question. Women say heterosexual women say they average sex once a week. They use a condom 20% of the time. You do the math. Women say they're averaging 1.1 billion condoms used in sex every year. You ask the same question to men, they report 1.6 billion condoms used in heterosexual sex every year. Does everybody see, by definition, those have to be the same? So we know that somebody's not telling the truth, that somebody's lying to surveys about just how much sex they're having. So who's telling the truth? There's data on how many condoms are sold every year. Only 600 million condoms are sold every year. Some of them thrown out and some of them used by gay men. So now everybody's lying about sex, men just more than women. But we now have a new way to understand people, to know what they're really doing and what they're really thinking. And that is people's Google searches. And people tell things to Google, their secrets that they might not tell anybody else, that they might not tell their friends, their family members, their husbands and wives, surveys, doctors. They kind of confess their secrets to Google. I call Google digital truth serum because it gets people to tell what they're really thinking and really want to know and really want to see. And when you look at Google data, you find that people are very different than they say. So for example, there are more Google searches for porn than for weather. Even though if you ask people in a survey, do you watch porn? Fewer than 20% of people admit that they watch porn. Everybody, of course, would say, yeah, I check the weather. And over again, we see that data from Google Trends, data set I analyze, is better than data from surveys, from what people say. It's more predictive of what they're actually going to do. So for example, I said you can't really trust when people say, if you ask people, are you going to vote in the upcoming election? Everybody says in a survey, yes, I'm going to vote, sure, I'm going to vote. And it doesn't tell us whether they actually turn out to vote. But you can look at Google searches, how to vote, where to vote, polling places. These predict with great accuracy if more people are searching for information on voting, more people turn out to vote. Another example, it's a sad example, but I think an important example. Millions of people search on Google. suicidal, how to commit suicide, ways to commit suicide, these searches predict actual suicides in an area. So when more people are searching for ways to commit suicide, more people end up committing suicide. And we want to think as a society, how can we use this information to maybe help people struggling with mental illness, with suicidal thoughts. And this is how I started my research on Google searches. I measured racism. So if you ask people in a survey, are you racist? What do you think people say? No, of course not me. You got the wrong person. Not in a million years. I don't have those attitudes. People don't want to admit that they have racist thoughts. But I was shocked by how many people make racist searches on Google. So this is the United States, obviously. I need to use offensive language, if you can imagine what a racist search is. So just to understand the science, the research. This is a map of Google searches that include the word nigger. Really, really nasty word. Nasty word. Obviously horrible word, mocking African Americans. Most people making these searches are looking for jokes, mocking and humiliating African Americans in the United States. And I was shocked by how common these searches are made. So people make this search for the word nigger more than they search for migraine, economist, Lakers. It's not a fringe search. Millions of Americans make these searches, even though they never admit it. So I did this research and I said, and darker red means higher racism, lighter red means lower racism. And I created this map. I said, there's a racism problem in the United States that people don't know about. And when I first did the research, a lot of people kind of ignored it. Okay, what does this even mean? But recently we had a presidential candidate in the United States by the name of Donald Trump. And he said some very racist things. He questioned whether Barack Obama, the first black president, was born in the United States. He retweeted false statistics about how frequently blacks commit crime. He got involved with tweeting things related to the KKK or white nationalism. And people asked me, you have this map of secret racism in the United States from Google searches, from people searching these jokes, mocking black people. Does that explain why Donald Trump is doing so well? And data scientists, they looked at the data, support for Donald Trump in the Republican primary and racist searches on Google. They found, the map is not here, but they found it was the single highest support measure they could ever find. The biggest predictor of support for Donald Trump was racist searches on Google. So areas that made more racist searches, that had darker red, that were more secretly racist, supported Donald Trump in bigger numbers than anywhere else. So this kind of secret racism explained why Donald Trump did so well. And one thing I want to keep in mind, people to keep in mind, so I study what's called big data. And all big data is not the same. So I talk about Google, and that's this revolutionary data source because people are so honest. They confess their secrets. They tell things to Google that they might not tell anyone else, that they're suicidal or they're racist or the porn they want to watch. And it serves as digital truth serum. Compare that to the other big data source we now have on people, their Facebook profiles, what they put on Facebook, the posts they make about their lives. And do people think people are honest on Facebook in the same way they're honest on Google? No. I call Facebook digital brag to my friends about how good my life is serum. Because everybody wants to show off how great their life is, right? And how present an image to all their friends. And over again, we see that the data on Facebook doesn't correspond to reality at all. So an example of Facebook data being misleading. I compared two magazines, the Atlantic Monthly, these are American magazines, and the National Enquirer. So the Atlantic Monthly is a serious, highbrow, intellectual magazine. It includes poetry and political theory and philosophy. The National Enquirer is a celebrity gossip, trashy magazine. It talks about who's got divorced or who weighs 500 pounds now. We know how popular these magazines are in reality. In reality, the actual copies purchased, 3 times more people read the National Enquirer, the trashy magazine, than the Atlantic Monthly, the serious magazine. What happens on Facebook when people say what they like to their friends? On Facebook, Facebook likes, the Atlantic Monthly is the intellectual magazine is actually more popular. In fact, it's 45 times more popular than the National Enquirer. So everybody wants their friends to think they're so intellectual, right? And it's actually fun if we compare these 2 different data sources, Facebook, which is public, people presenting an image to their friends, and Google, which is anonymous, people confessing what they're really thinking, their secret thoughts. We can compare these 2 different data sources on the same topic. So I compared how people describe their husbands on Facebook and on Google. So let's start with Facebook. When people are posting on social media, my husband is. They're making a post and all their friends are going to see it. My husband is. What do people think the top way people complete that phrase is on Facebook? I think someone guessed it. I think you're all close. But the number 1 is the best. I think someone said that in this corner. The best, okay. Congratulations, she's the winner. So the best is number 1. Number 2, my best friend. Number 3, all right. Number 3, amazing. Number 4, the greatest. And number 5, so cute. So that's marriage according to social media when all your friends see. What happens on Google when you're by yourself? Nobody's seeing what you're typing. What do people type about their husbands? My husband is. And the 3rd most common Google search that starts my husband is, you're jumping ahead, is actually the exact same as Facebook. It's my husband is amazing, the exact same as Facebook, which is the most surprising of everything in this data, because why are you telling Google that? Like if you type my husband is amazing, what's Google going to tell you? Congratulations. So that one checks out as the same social media public, Google private. But what about the other searches that people make on Google? Very, very different. So rounding out the top 5, Google searches about husbands. My husband is gay, a jerk, annoying, and mean. So I have a lot more on all this topic on my book, Everybody Lies, which is in the bookstore as well. And I think I'm going to just take a couple questions, if we still have time, from Andres. But thank you very much. Gracias, gracias.